Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sabbath at Midnight. I am your host, Lionel Tavares, along here with my co-host, Dominic. And tonight's guest is Tanner. Tanner, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. If you have any websites or anything you want to share to, help you out. Go ahead.
All right, guys. Yeah, I'm Tanner. I'm from Seattle originally, and I come from a long line of Freemasonry family, and I'm one of the few to break out of that for my family.
Wow, that's a lot right there already. It just, with that being said, your story, just go ahead and start from the very beginning if you can, and give us as much detail.
Yeah, from the earliest beginnings.
How it started. Maybe you saw stuff before you started noticing, stuff like that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So look, I ever since I was young, I would actually see a lot of things. A lot of people don't know, like Freemasonry goes back generations, and they curse future generations as well. So my mom is actually the result of a rape by a Freemason, 33rd degree, and her actually my real mom's grandmother was actually at one point the highest. She was actually the head of the Eastern Star, so that's basically the women's sect of Freemasonry.
Okay, wow.
And her original bloodline actually goes all the way back to the Denny family, who founded Seattle, Washington. So my mom actually ended up having history books that actually she turned into for informational for Seattle, the city of Seattle. So I ended up researching like a lot of my family lineage, and I had a lot of weird things happen when I was younger. So I would basically have my mother had a handler assigned to her because she was the result of a satanic ritual abuse. So this is something that happens a lot in Freemasonry. And it's usually at peak times of the year. You get peak festivals and stuff like that, and ritualistic rites. Sex magic is a huge one in Freemasonry. And basically a lot of what happened growing up is, I would see a lot of things spiritually. Manifest spiritually into the physical realm. I would have a lot of, phone calls. I would get phone calls from random numbers, and then static lines, and so anywhere from static lines to demonic voices to literal like Men in Black phone calls. Kind of freaked me out growing up because I didn't have a grid for a lot of it. I just know what I was seeing and hearing. So I don't know. I could go down a few different lines.
Yeah, just really quick. So you keep, for the people that are new listening to this, you keep saying Freemasons and satanic rituals in the same sentence. So is it safe to say that, Freemasons are Satanists?
It depends on the level. For me, I think it works towards the same goal in a sense. The lower levels don't tell the higher levels don't tell the lower levels who their actual servant is, which is actually Lucifer. It
is. Yeah. So it is Satanism.
Yeah. So it serves Satan at the end of the day. So, a lot of it is hand in hand. So you can't get one without the other. Everything is hidden, esoteric. It's everyone's kept in the dark ultimately. The 33rd degree Masons are the ones that, without a doubt know exactly everything that's going on, especially with the lower levels. But yeah, so basically what happens is my mom was, comes from a long line of Freemasonry, and she was actually, when she was born, my mom's real mother, before she was adopted out, was actually pumped full of a whole bunch of hallucinogenic and kind of test drugs to try and make her seem crazy so they could put her in a psych ward. And she ended up trying to write letters to my mother, who actually had almost crossed out, like almost like a government classified document. A lot of things were blocked out, and things didn't make any sense. And my mom, when she was actually, in the womb, she had a lot of people come in to her mother's room and like ritualistically, hex her inside the womb, which is pretty heavy stuff. But so what ended up happening is my mom's real mom was assigned someone, aka a handler, like an MK Ultra handler, and his name was Robert. And what they do, especially in Freemasonry, if you've been assigned someone to watch over, I don't know if anyone, for the listeners, but they have something called mind fracturing, or they have something called like an orgone energy, where they establish or they break a personality of your mind, or they basically compartmentalize a personality in your mind, either by trigger words, symbolism, or some sort of memory by scent or vision. And so what would happen is when my mother was older, and she went and visited her real mom for the first time in 2003, I believe, there were certain symbols and things on her mother's wall that would she would kind of get visions of and memories of, like it's almost like a core memory. And there was a gentleman by the name Robert. My father actually met him, and he had this really cold, dark energy about him. And my father is a very timid, like just very reserved, doesn't get startled by anything. But this man really scared my father, and he could just tell he had really dark spirits on him. And basically, what happens is my mother was cut off from her biological mom and adopted out to a quote unquote Christian family. And when she was adopted out to a Christian family, a lot of that ritualistic abuse kind of came to a cease, like a standhold. But her adopted father actually ended up dying of blood toxicity when she was 16 years old. So this kind of thing kept following her, like this dark kind of hook spiritually. Mm. And with Freemasonry, a lot of people don't know, but women usually are cursed with back pain. Or so my mother actually has a completely twisted spine, and she's been bedridden most of her life. But so this thing goes really deep. So Freemasonry, I'm not sure if anyone has ever seen the movie. It's a horrible movie, but it's exactly how a lot of it is. It's Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise, I believe it is.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it when I was young.
Yeah, it's kind of trippy.
I was like, I didn't understand it. I think it was like 12 years old when I watched it. I have to watch it again.
That's a trippy movie.
Oh, yes. And that's exactly what the ritualistic abuse looks like. They have these, almost like covens. Mm-hmm. And they have, even another funny fact with this is, the whole, with the whole, the pandemic and things like that. Well, the 6 feet apart thing, mm-hmm. that actually came from the rituals. Mm. So it's just another ritual in society. With the distancing, the social distancing, it's a 6x6 rule. Well, that's how they stand in formation when they're doing the ritualistic stuff. So pretty crazy.
Are they all wearing masks too while they're doing it?
Actually, ironically, sometimes.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I think I read something about that a while back when all this was happening, and then when I heard about it, I started looking at all the signs at the grocery store, and it says 6 feet apart, and it's all written like in a 666 triangle. I'm like, and then you look down at the floor, and it says 6 feet apart. It's 666. Everything was 666 everywhere I went.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this thing goes way deep. So, that happens. There's a lot of these dark societies. There's different sects as well. So you have like Blue Lodges of Seattle or California. They're even like in the part near Sonoma County. They got Bohemian Grove and stuff like that with the top 50 CEOs and presidents, sitting presidents, prime ministers. And it just depends on, each bloodline and, family names too go big with that. So for my bloodline, that goes back to the Denny family. Well, if you actually look at, it's called Denny Way, it's like the Denny Triangle area in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And they actually have a graveyard that's a fence, a very tall, like metal fence, twisting fence. And it's got, large checkerboard floor. And they have these grave marker sites that are massive, just these complex Freemasonry graves. You can actually look it up on Google. They're pretty intricate and insane looking. But there's definitely markers and pillars that signify status and also, bloodline heritage.
Wow, that's wild. Can you for the listeners, can you give more information on the Demi family, what they were involved with and how they became, like a historic family?
Yeah, so they basically became a historic family. So they actually came over, they come over here from West Point, Seattle. Like, so you have Arthur Denny and a few of the other ones. They were actually one of the among the first of the European American settlers, and they were one of the first families to kind of establish Seattle, the European side of Seattle, because ironically, Seattle was actually named after Chief Seattle, Native American, but on the Euro. And it's the Denny family were basically the first it's almost like a Freemason plant. What they do is they have planters and they designate a certain planter for a city, and they basically are designating themselves almost in a way like in a secret society of, well, we are the kings and this is basically my fortitude. So,
wow.
And they set up basically finance and everything over there. So even where I grew up in Seattle, it's entirely, just Denny family, Pike's Place Market, where they have all their.
Oh yeah, Pike's Place, yeah.
Yeah, everything over there is completely like Denny family owned and things like that. So it's and there's a lot of underground in Seattle as well. There's a lot of underground tunnels people don't know about. Yeah, it's kind of the founding fathers. They bury a lot of past, and then on top of that, so it's look into mud flood type stuff. There's definitely building on top of old societies that Freemasonry's trick.
Wow.
I was gonna say I just want a little information because I see this in a bunch. I see it in every movie, every cartoon, anything Hollywood music video is the checkerboard floor. What's up with the checkerboard floor?
Checkerboard floor. Yep. So
it's
basically
everywhere.
Believe in a cosmic light and darkness. So with Freemasonry, they are required. They believe in karmic repercussions.
Oh, really quick. I think I was just looking into that. So when you let me see if I get this right. So they believe in and you said karmic retribution. So for example, like if I were they believe they could be punished for lying and tricking you. So like, for example, let's just say I have poison apples and I'm selling poison apples and I put apple on there. And if someone eats that, it's my fault. I murdered you. But if I put poison apple and someone buys it, they committed suicide.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's why they put everything they're going to do in the movies. They literally, it doesn't matter how it's presented. It could be presented as a joke. It could be presented as a superhero, whatever. They would still put the truth in front of you. And I think that's why they do that, because literally every movie is coming to fruition in some way.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. That's part and parcel with their saying, truth in plain sight, hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, it's part of their,
Oh yeah, it's totally part of the plan, and for them, the information is out there. It's up to us to do our due diligence, in a way. So they feel, their karma is wiped clean from their conscience because they've already given the facts. It's up to us to do the diligence.
Wow. Yeah. Go ahead. You have a question? I really wanted to get into that. Glad I did.
Yeah. That's crazy. What you mentioned earlier that you saw strange things. What type of strange things did you encounter?
Yeah. So from when I was young, I was always like, I was a little bit different of a kid. I would, even when I was, 5, 6 years old, I would see things physically. I would see anywhere from orbs, flying orbs to literally I would get creatures like manifest right at the bottom of my bed. And a little bit later when I was older, I would get Freemasonry dreams actually.
Wow. And
there'd be different types of sects of these, like the Shriners is actually a huge one. It's the Middle Eastern sect. Mm-hmm. And I would get pyramid dreams as well and wolf dreams. And a lot of those are symbolic of, Freemasonry or being gridlocked into that spiritually. So a lot of people don't know, but if your family line has been deep in the Freemasonry, you actually do need to make some prayers to break off some things of your bloodline, simply for the fact I'm not sure what everyone else's belief is, but I'm a Messianic Christian, and for me, you need to break these curses off your bloodlines, because they'll just continue otherwise, 70 generations, onward, because people don't put in the work for that. God's good like that, to break it off your line. And so for me, I would see a lot of things growing up. I would see orbs. I would see, demonic creatures. I would even have inanimate objects that would morph into creature faces.
Wow.
So for instance, even on windows, I remember this really dark winter with my parents, and I would see creatures' faces morph into like frost glass, because it was so cold outside. It would morph into demonic faces, and even my parents would get freaked out.
Oh, they saw it too?
Sorry?
Your parents saw it too?
They saw the physical ones in the windows, yes.
Wow.
But growing up, I actually have a twin brother, so we would have the same dreams, and we would talk in our dreams and wake up and continue our conversation. And even our parents would admit to that. So it was very odd, and a lot of stuff going on with that. And then also, I would see a lot of things, like creatures, orbs, and almost like angelic type beings. So a lot of activity and a lot of demonic stuff. I'd be in bed, and like succubus type spirits, and basically, you'd have footprints on my bed you could see, and I could feel it physically way down on my chest. So there was a lot of oppression in the house.
Oh wow, that's
yeah. So a lot of that going on, and then you'd hear noises. I would see drops of water flying across the room, books fly off the shelf. Poltergeist type activity growing up, and all three, there's three of us boys, and we would all three wake up at the same time, and the balls of our feet would like almost be like, not physically, but like spiritually, it's like we'd stumble down the hallway from waking up from a nightmare, and we could not walk. Don't know what that is, but it's almost like this impedance. We'd all have wolf dreams, we would all have pyramid dreams. So there was something on that, and then later in life, I would get messages from these creatures, that would be called like, I am the gatekeeper. How dare you, transgress us in the times of Moses, and all sorts of weird messages. And I'd get calls from like 6666, or like messages from, quote unquote Satan on Facebook in 12 different languages. Greek, Italian, English, and it was like old style English writing that didn't quite sound human. It was the oddest encounter. I can't even explain it to this day. But I would just get all sorts of weird stuff. And even when I was older, in my teenage years, myself and my twin, we would get followed by these men in black suits. And, I just, you think it's kind of, you watch Men in Black, and it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, no, it's just movies and stuff. But no, it's very real. So, and that kind of made me go, whoa, this is kind of something that's real, and I need to address, because otherwise it's going to follow me, like this, Freemason stuff. I need to do something about this. So that kind of got me on a journey with God about figuring it all out and just breaking things off my bloodline, because, my brothers and I would walk down the street, and street lights would turn off. It's like Stranger Things,
Yeah.
So street lights, electronics would break, or things like that. Lights would pop, So there was definitely a lot coming through my bloodline with that, and it's a crazy thing. You gotta be consciously aware, and people that have long lines of, Freemasonry actually are more susceptible to these attacks and to spiritual warfare in a lot of ways. You see a lot, usually, I have a lot of, like Viking bloodline, and like, Scottish as well with that. and Jewish. So there's a lot of like just open, bloodlines with that. There's a few different sects of, Freemasonry that, you get, the Scottish Rite, which is coming through Scotland as well, which is a huge one. So that's primarily probably through my bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it goes really dark, and you need to kind of just put on the spiritual armor of God on that one.
Absolutely. Now with the 33rd degree, how much information do you have on what they know?
I have a fair bit. I mean, it depends also on what line they took. Like the left-handed path is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
They're the left hand. Because there's Kabbalistic. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Kabbalistic path, which is more of, it goes all the way back to Nimrod. Okay.
Yeah. Nimrod.
So Nimrod actually was one of the first Nephilim, he tried transmuting himself into one of the first Nephilim. So there's a lot of Nimrod worship that goes all the way back, and the Canaanites, worshipped a lot of Nimrod, God worship. So the Kabbalah tree is an esoteric, kind of like a Jewish mysticism, or the, it goes all the way back to, medieval Judaism.
How much information do you have on him trying to turn himself into a Nephilim? What is that? That's one I want to get some details on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just kind of skipped over that one. I was like, well, I want more details.
Yeah. He, so basically, and a lot of this, it's, so you actually research, even like with Babylonian, he was building, the tower. So Nimrod was trying to build his way, obviously to heaven, which in a spiritual sense, he was trying to become God. So he wanted to be godlike, and that's, Nephilim, you get like, even Greek mythology, you get, Hercules, things like that. Well, they were all Nephilim,
Mm-hmm.
So Nimrod actually goes further back, like Mesopotamia. He actually was doing that, and I think there was actually more to the Tower of Babel with that. I think it's more of like a spiritual, almost like a portal type thing. And he was trying to ascend to heaven. It's almost like what the devil's trying to do is trying to become like God. He was like God, So for me, he was trying to basically, I'll take it back for a second. In Freemasonry, a lot of the stuff goes back to the Solomon. So the seals of Solomon, and there's a lot of so what Solomon did, especially in the Bible, he started out as a man of God, and then he actually went wicked. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people thought he repented and things like that, but he died in his wickedness, and he created these seals, right? They're called the seals of Solomon, and they were basically like sigils or talismans, basically to get demons and spiritual beings to do his bidding, and they would basically be summoned and be hexed in this kind of and they call it the seal of Solomon, and it would do his bidding, but it had to stay within that spiritual transmutation circle. So that's what Nimrod, in a sense, was kind of doing with the Tower of Babel, and in kind of my way, it's kind of like almost like a portal to trying to spiritually break the order that God was put into our universe, because God is a God of order. So, he was trying to transmutate, with hybridization type stuff. Mm-hmm. That's how you get a lot of these, like, experiments nowadays where they're having, hybridizing animals and, human, cloning and things like that. Well, that's what they were doing way back then. And that's what, Nimrod was trying to do, because you get the human soul, being melded with the corrupted hybridization of the fallen angels and things like that. So it's messing with God's design, and that's exactly what Nimrod was trying to do. And that's why, and it would appear that there's some biblical evidence to that he succeeded in the sense of becoming Nephilim, like godlike, in that pursuit. So he genetically did something that altered his essence in a way, because that's how you get societies that are actually worshiping Nimrod. You look at the Vatican, fish worship, which is Dagon worship, what is Dagon when it goes further back? It goes back to Nimrod. So, and the Canaanites worship Nimrod for thousands of years. So, you get fish worship. You even get like symbols. The fish symbol actually originated back to Dagon worship. And because it was such a prevalent symbol, it's funny, Christian followers actually adapted it and used the fish symbol for Christ instead, but it was already a known symbol in the ancient world. So they're basically building Christ followers off an already known symbol for Christ instead of a pagan god.
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, I've heard about that fish symbol.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff.
And that's the thing, people don't, when things are thrown at them, they don't research, what is a symbol? What does it mean? Because it seems like it's just, benign, it's just, you think about Christ, and the loaves and fishes. Okay, well, that's cool. But I think people should stop and think, when a symbol is introduced to you, you should really look into it, because there's symbolism everywhere.
Oh yeah, the symbolism's. It's every day in our face as well. Even with the Freemasonry, it just takes one symbol, and everyone. Look at our trademarks and logos in society. Big name brands and things like that. It's the same thing. You recognize the symbol, before you do words. It's like just as we do as when we're kids. That's the first thing we do.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. That is so true. When you're seeing these, I don't really want to dwell on it, but I have to ask, what do these creatures look like? The ones you actually physically saw?
Look, some of them look like almost formless, and they have like an essence. So they're either really white, and I've seen some that are like, in my spirit, they feel like almost angelic, and then other ones that are super dark entities, they feel malevolent, and they feel cold. The room goes cold. You start to feel sick in your stomach, and I would almost, anytime there's almost like witchcraft going on, I would get nosebleeds or I'd get headaches, and I know instantly what's going on. And a lot of these, like, I'd see like a black mist fill the room when I was younger, or, I'd have really guttural noises, or my name being spoken in really demonic, voices. Otherwise, I'd get like almost like these creatures also I would see that would, it's weird. It almost looks like, like those little gray aliens sometimes when I was younger. And they almost look like the height of a leprechaun almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then, in Scotland, they get a lot of these, fairy creatures, or they get like, leprechaun creatures. Well, I just think those are, just, these little, hybridized creatures, or, almost spiritual entities that are trying to mask into cultural relevance and to try and, fit into the folklore of the, modern culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I would see a lot of these things that look like grays, or like just really twisted looking creatures, almost like pale skin. This one time we were in the car with my mother, and my twin brother actually saw on the back of my mother's neck this little tiny creature like pulling her at the neck and clawing into her neck, and my mom instantly saying she wasn't feeling well, and we both saw this creature just hanging claws in my mom's neck. And so I'd see a lot of these things, and then I'd also see like almost portal type things open, where I'd see like a green type energy swirling in a circle.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then also I would see like doors, these like almost spiritual doors open, and this black figure, almost like it's almost like a Slender Man looking creature. I'm not sure if your viewers know what that is, but Slender Man's like a very, very abnormally like tall and skinny, with long arms, long legs, almost like a formless void with featureless face. And it opens a door, and it's like pitch black, and it kind of looks at me and stares at me, and then it shuts its door, and like it's gone. And it's pretty freaky. But yeah, I would see all sorts of creatures. I would see these orbs that would almost like jump around in the sky, and then all of a sudden they would drill into the earth almost. It's like they were drilling for something, like in the orb and going around and round in circles, and then they'd pop back up, and then they do the same thing and jump around all over the surface. So yeah, I've said there's all sorts of creatures. I could go on for days, but
yeah, that's pretty insane. Yeah, but with that being said, speaking of creatures, when all this Freemasonry, the rituals, the satanic stuff, whether you experience it or not, or you know someone that's experienced it, because I've heard stories before where there's non-human entities at these big rituals, like the very secretive ones. Like some people say there's like these 10-foot tall massive beings with a robe on. You can't even see the face. Sometimes they say there's a snout. You know what I mean? Like, so if you have any of those, I'd like to, give me this information.
Okay. Yeah, no, there's definitely that. I've had a few of that actually. So there's actually, I've actually had a being that's like 10 foot tall standing over my bed, and it was hooded, it was like black hood, and it was the only thing holding up the hood was like this. The only thing I can describe it is like this mist, like this. It's like a human figure, but just black mist, and it's the same things that happen at the rituals. They have this. They basically are speaking in reverse angelic, and Enochian language, and it's a language that blasphemes basically Yahweh, or God, and basically it summons these creatures to these rituals, and especially if it's a sex magic ritual. Then they want to summon that creature, and the energy is summoned through sex magic. So they would either, in Freemasonry, they would get either breeders, or they call them mules, and they would get women at certain high holidays to do these sex magic rituals, and to basically envelop the energy of the sex magic for that creature to appear. So yeah, you're right on the money with that. You would get all sorts of creatures showing up, and depending on who they wanted to summon for the specific season and time, yeah, you would definitely get different creatures and different demonic principalities that would show up to these. And the bigger you go, like Bohemian Grove, you actually get like, Baphomet or Baal, and these go back to the ancient mysticism, basically, sun worship, or different gods that go back to the ancient world, so there's nothing new under the sun. It's all these old gods just rewrapped in these new cultural fabrics. So it's still being done. All these presidents and prime ministers are all doing these things, especially it's not even in the dark anymore. It's quite open, and it's being more readily accepted, unfortunately. And people just don't quite know the dangers that they're entering into. Even with things like AI that's coming out, people don't realize how much can actually be taken into account for these disembodied spirits like Nephilim, with AI. And it's kind of taking over the world, with all these disembodied spirits being able to use, AI. And it's the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to say really quick, that whole thing you just said about breeders and all that ritual abuse stuff. We did a podcast with, his name is Dr. Gallagher, and he was talking about one of his patients that went through satanic ritual abuse, and she described exactly what you just told me. So I do starting to understand why Freemasonry and Satanists are pretty much the same thing. That's very,
it's
very
canon.
interesting. Yeah.
It's, you get, some of the, most looked at Freemason people like Albert Pike and things like that. The dogmas, and they all believe that. It's like one of his books. But they all, this is stuff that they use for their, agendas. And these breeders and mules, a lot of these women are just kept for that, for, baby sacrifice and things like that at the rituals. There's certain things that they have to do, or certain evils that can only be done a certain way. So, doing that, or, unfortunately, like raping someone or things like that, or, using young babies, or they call them the essence of the young. So a young male baby is considered the purest form of energy in the universe. So that's why they use a lot of male babies for sacrifice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder with all these missing kids, and all that stuff, it's just, everything just ties in. You mentioned the Enochian language. So this language is actually known in Freemasonry, I guess the higher ups.
In the higher ups, yes. So the higher ups, it can all intertwine too, because some of the parties, a lot of the Rothschild bloodlines, some of the parties are overtly satanic, and those are the higher up parties. Those are invite only parties, and yes, that's exactly right. They're invite onlys, they're higher ups. None of the lower levels, honestly, a lot of the lower levels don't really know. A lot of them think they're Christians and they're actually not, but they think they're doing God's will, by serving the community and doing all these, shill type events that give them a good name on the outside, but it's overtly satanic.
Wow. I was listening to a podcast, and sometimes I do a little research that way. And this one guy, this military guy, allegedly encountered along with his team, a crashed craft, I don't know, a UFO, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
But inside of it, the guy couldn't make out the symbols, and the scientist told him it was Enochian hieroglyphs.
Oh, no way. Wow.
So, that's why I'm just trying to tie this in. I mean, it seems like these Freemasons that know this language, if they can evoke certain things, I'm sure they can call these grays out of hell or wherever they come from.
Oh yeah. They can totally do that, and it depends on, again, for the ritual or what they're trying to invoke. It's like Aleister Crowley, and a lot of these guys that are, trying to summon certain beings, and a lot of these, beings, aside from just Freemasonry, they draw from energy, or a lot of Freemasons like to call it chaos energy. So military complex, a lot of, explosive energy, or a lot of changes of energy quickly, AKA atom bomb, or, a lot of seismic in the sense of seismic events in the sense of energy. They're attracted to it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of demonic things are attracted to that type of stuff for whatever reason. These huge events in our society, it's like the Vietnam War. They had, a lot of their night vision goggles. They had a specific dye, like a blue dye, in their night vision goggles that they could see these demonic beings in there. They even let their fighter pilots know, like, hey, they're not allowed to wear it. The ones flying, these helicopters, because everyone was seeing these demonic beings.
I've never heard that. What type of night? This must be a special night vision, because I have night vision. I don't see creatures like that.
Yeah, no. So actually, it was a very specific night vision. Mm-hmm. I think it's the Gen 2s, but it had blue dye in it, a specific blue dye that picked up a certain energy, like almost like, what would you describe it? Yeah, it picked up just the right frequency and right coloring to get these spiritual beings. And it was kind of an operation actually that really got shut down quickly because they were, during the jungle warfare, these guys were freaking out, just full on shooting at things that they couldn't see. And it was crazy. But it was a specific night vision that would happen with that. And these beings would end up seeing these soldiers because they realized that they could see them, and they would fly towards them, and these guys would freak out. They ended up pulling it on the whole operation and, pulling the night vision goggles just after the Vietnam War, and the CIA was tried to kind of just get rid of that as fast as they could.
Actually, they made a movie. They actually made a short movie about what you just said right now. Like, not exactly with the night vision, but I forgot the name of it. It's something on Netflix. But yeah, there was a Vietnam War, and they start realizing there was just a bunch of demons in the jungle, and only one guy could see them. And yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I want to know that movie.
That's not the first time I've heard of that, though. I've heard about this before too. What you're saying, that's very interesting. So these spirits just look like a bunch of what do you call it, like silhouettes, or they have a form?
No, they could actually see the spirits, and the spirits recognized that they could see them.
They look like people. What do they look like?
A lot of them said that they had like these, like almost like gargoyle-looking wings.
Oh,
too.
Wow. That's the detail. See, that's a detail I want to know, because most of the time it's just a shadow thing, or
no, a lot of those guys saw like winged features. Like a lot of them saw like really gargoyle looking creatures, like larger teeth, almost like a predator. Definitely like gargoyle type creatures. So pretty winged creatures. Like. You get stuff like Mothman and stuff like that, like those type of characters,
Wow,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really out there.
And that dye is actually illegal. Like, they tried to make it illegal. It's actually not illegal anymore, but they've made it very hard for you. You can't be an average Joe and just get it. But they tried making it look like it was illegal for many, many years.
Well, yeah. I mean, even though you can get the dye, I mean, how do you purpose that into a night vision? I mean,
that's right.
You got to get it into the magnifying tube and all the other stuff that goes into that. So it's kind of tricky. I guess my thinking, not that, I'm going to go out and do it, but my thinking is you have to inject that dye into the lens.
Yeah, you do. And it's a specific, they do it a specific way. I'm no professional on, night vision, how to put it together. I mean, I know how to use it, but it's definitely a specific process, but yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff.
I'm looking this up right now. There's a lot of information on this, on these, goggles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. There's a lot of people, there's a whole thread on it, a bunch of threads on this. This is very interesting. I'm going to have to look into this, but
yeah, there's a lot of topic on it. It's definitely out there. The information is there.
I'm the kind of guy that will just try it. Just want to see what's going on. I'll probably regret it later, but I want to see what's driving me crazy 24/7. It's probably these evil spirits. Sometimes when you're just having a good day and you just feel down all of a sudden, or your mood just changes from good to bad for no reason. I think that's because of these things that are just around you, trying to bring you down.
Oh yeah.
So. With that being said, let's get into more of this Freemason stuff. So we talked about all the creatures of the ritual. So that if you're comfortable talking about it, what is something that that you went through that with this Freemason? Like, did you go through a ritual too? Did you get? I mean, is there like contracts? How they say where you could be a celebrity, you want to be this, you want to be that, you got to sell your soul, all that stuff. Do you have any information on anything you did personally? Or that information?
Personally, not myself. I was around a lot of things that I just saw the aftermath of things. So for me, I personally saw I actually had a childhood friend who eventually ended up, quote unquote, selling his soul, into kind of not even the industry. It was more of like, towards the, Luciferian end of it. And he signed a blood contract. So what they do, obviously, you know, it's just when they write their contract, they do it in blood. And I ended up having to cut contact with them forever because I spiritually felt something shift. And I was like, I checked up on them one day and I just felt something spiritually shift. And I asked him, I was like, hey, buddy, like God kind of prompts me in a way like that. But it's like, you doing all right? Like, everything okay? And he's like, you know, it's too late for me now. And I was like, what are you talking about? And come to find out, you know, he's part of this huge coven. And I just couldn't spiritually align with him anymore as a friend.
So what do you mean when he said it's too late? Does he not? I mean, I know like the Bible says, I believe what the book says that totally. Book and it says anyone could be saved, but at the same time, I mean, how do you pull back from that? If you literally, well, I don't think you can sell your soul. First of all, I think that's God's decision what he wants to do with your soul.
I agree.
But there's definitely something that Lucifer, Satan, or whatever demonic entity is doing this contract with the human. They're doing something that's controlling them spiritually, because there is some kind of soul capturing thing when they do these contracts, because things do change and, you know, things start, like you said, there's a spiritual shift. What do you think that is? Yeah,
that's a good point. That's definitely so. I'll just go off basically like the industry take of it. What that is, and people also like, let's bring this back to the light as well. You cannot permanently give something away that is not ours to basically, you know, give away. God created us, you know, it's what they're actually doing is basically signing over control. Basically your entity, your body is basically theirs to use and abuse in whatever way that they see fit, whether it be in the industry, music. You know, it's like a lot of these celebrities, like they feel sick, they don't want to go do a show. Well, it's like, no, too bad, you have to. Like, you have to do this. Like, you're contracted, you have to do this, and we will forcibly make sure you do that. Like, we'll pump you full of drugs, or, you know, we'll kill you if you don't do this. That's those type of contracts, and that's quote unquote selling your soul.
Okay.
Yeah, so you basically sign over free will in the sense of what your body autonomy, in that sense, I guess. But you know, God is He's the creator, so He's ultimately, the seat of our souls, and He's the at the end of the day, He's the Alpha and Omega. So, for me, it's signing over free will, and that's a lot of, a lot of these people don't realize, like, hey, like, I want money, I want fame, and, they don't realize, and then they're either ritualistically abused for that entire time, or they're killed off.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of them are drugged out. You get like famous stars like Elvis.
Yeah.
Well, they pumped him full of drugs to keep him docile, to keep him, somewhat larger, to keep him docile and malleable, to be able to use and abuse. And then they ritualistically sacrifice a lot of these people. So in the industry, they sacrifice people in bathtubs, or they do music videos with bathtubs.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Well, the water signifies death or rebirth. So that's where you get a lot of these human clone type things coming in.
Yeah.
Or you sign contracts stating that a lot of these celebrities you see on stage aren't actually those original celebrities. They're their clones.
Oh, yeah, they look completely different, too.
Oh, totally.
And another thing, while you're on the topic, I wanted to get this in there, because this is another thing, too, that's just common. What's up with this whole, whatever, Hollywood Freemasons? What is their obsession with, like, making straight men homosexuals? Like, what's this obsession with that? Because I see that all these celebrities at some point have to do a feminine role, or they force themselves to promote, the LGBT community, or they're either getting molested or there's always something to make the straight man gay. What is the obsession with that?
That's a good point. That's solid. That's basically essentially called the mocking ritual. And that mocking ritual, everyone has to do at some point or another. If you're going to make it big in the industry, everyone has to do it.
Like what, homosexual sex, or right? I mean,
oh yes, that
they're not going to let you get away. I mean, yeah. Really quick, I just want to put this out there because I always have this argument all the time. Like for example, like celebrities, I always have this argument. I'm going to use the Avengers as an example. Okay, there's a lot of big movie stars in the Avengers, right?
Yep.
And and some person said one time, oh, Chris Pratt wouldn't do that. He's a Christian. I'm like, dude, you're telling me Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, all these big names, they had to do all this weird stuff, but Chris Pratt got a pass and he got to be in the Avengers with them and make the same amount of money? Of course not. He has to do the same thing. You can't just be an Avenger and be the only one that doesn't have to do all this stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, you got a great point. And that's true. And here's also the thing, a lot of these guys have a lot of the Christian fan base. Even look at Katy Perry. She came from a church background, and she had a large Christian fan base. They'll use that to the nth degree as much as they can for their fame and fortune. Yeah,
Chris Pratt's always being praised as his Christian, but yet he's in all these movies. I mean, oh my God, it's a big red flag.
Yeah, that's
don't tell me this guy's a good person because he's a Christian, but yeah, he's literally working in the highest level of Satanism entertainment,
Oh yeah, totally. Totally.
Like, I mean, for Christ's sakes, Iron Man is the Antichrist. I don't know if you heard about this, but about 2 years ago, it's in the comic book. They introduced him in the Marvel comic books as the Antichrist. They changed the whole story. Iron Man's dad, Tony Stark, he wanted to be the smartest man in the world before he was born, and he, I forgot the name of the character, but basically he summoned the devil, and the devil said, "I'll make you the smartest man in the world," which, he did, and he said, "But first you have to bear my first son," which was Tony Stark. And who's Tony Stark? He's the smartest man in the world, the richest man in the world. He has all the technology, he has all the AI. Sound familiar like right now? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my word. Wow. I have not seen that. I would not doubt that though, because a lot of our superheroes, even Superman, is based off of, these mighty men of renown, like Nephilim or, hybrids. And that's exactly what they've conditioned us to worship almost like these Nephilim beings, which is crazy because, you look at something, like what's the German super soldier, the Uberman. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what that's based off of. And that's what Hitler was trying to attain is the perfect man, which is essentially, the Nephilim, they're trying to get back to the Nephilim bloodlines, the blue bloods.
That's all that stuff you're talking about. I did a podcast about superheroes and all the relations to it. You definitely got to take a listen on that one. That's
okay.
Like, for example, what's his name? What's the warlock's name again?
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange. He is Aleister Crowley. He's literally based off Aleister Crowley.
Oh my God,
his entire character, the way he looks. I mean, look at his beard. If he was bald, he has the old beard and all that stuff. And what do you call it? And Aleister Crowley talked about the Scarlet Witch, right? But and in the newest movie he just made, who was his enemy? The Scarlet Witch, right? And his whole it all relates at some point. You really got to listen to the podcast and check it out. It's a pretty good one on all that stuff. But off subject.
Oh no, I believe it. That's crazy. It goes hand in hand with the conditioning. We're just so used to, the status quo and how they want us to think they are supposed to be like.
And the signals too. I mean, it's all about the sigils. I forgot how to say that word, sigils, and I'm pronouncing it right. You said that.
Yep.
Solomon made, right, all those signs. Well, Doctor Strange, he's always doing those. He's making those signs with his hands. You notice that?
Those are actually transmutation symbols. So yeah, they're actually like literal, esoteric symbols. They're portal symbols.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what they are, but I knew there was something nefarious like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can look at his hands. He's doing satanic symbolism, hand symbolism.
Wow.
Yeah, all of those are symbolism. It's like art. Even like music artists, they'll get up on stage and they'll flash hand signals or hand symbolism so fast that your subliminal catches it, but your but your actual mind doesn't in the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and the music industry is really dark.
Oh yeah,
Oh, it's full demonic.
Yeah, it's just crazy. All the stuff God, I forget the name of the artist. Well, are they artists? I don't know. It flees me, but it was like they're portraying like a demonic creature and like they're in hell or something like that. I forgot who it was, but there's a lot of that going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, even The Weeknd, he was throwing it up, Satan on the screen. Taylor Swift just recently did a satanic ritual, and even people that were not of faith, they were saying, oh yeah, I just witnessed a satanic ritual. Like, she's literally, and there's kind of a backdrop on Taylor Swift with that, is there's kind of almost like there's pretty good evidence for, but that she's a granddaughter of Anton LaVey.
Oh, now that you say that, she has the eyebrows, like those pointy eyebrows and those eyes. Yeah,
she's definitely initiated. She's a high witch, so she's one of the priestess. It's like Beyonce. She's one of the highest in the industry, along with Taylor Swift.
God, it made me throw up, man. I can't stand that. I can't stand their music, their symbolism, the way they talk, the way they walk, just the whole thing.
Yeah.
So these celebrities are all high up in the Freemasonry.
They have to be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're initiated.
Shaq too. Remember Shaq?
Yeah, Shaq.
Oh yeah.
He said it on TV.
He had a big old Freemasonry ring, and Charles Barkley says, "What is that?" He goes, "You don't know anything about it. Don't ask."
And then the other guy that it's on the same show. What's the other guy? Anyway, there's three of them on the show, and the other guy said, "I know what that is." He's all, "I know what that is." He's all, and then Shaq just kind of like smiled, like he was proud of it.
Wow, wow,
that's that guy's name.
Big old stone, a big old rock, man, gold. It was crazy. Now getting back to the Freemasons, I heard something about when they have their meetings or rituals or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but someone sits in the east, west, and south, but no one sits in the north chair.
Yes.
What is that? What does all that mean?
In the north chair. So it depends. A lot of there's different sect as well. But the empty chair is basically, for the deceased brethren and stuff, for recognition, of the craft during times of war. And they leave an empty chair. It's a lot like, the Knights of the Round Table, that concept.
Yeah.
So, they have a round table. Everyone is considered equal, even though they all know that there's, the higher, degrees, but they leave that for their fallen brothers and stuff like that. A lot of them do that. I know the one, in the UK does. But it depends on the lodge as well and the sect of Freemasonry. So I can't speak for all, but that is one of the ones I know.
Right. And getting back to what you mentioned earlier about the Men in Black, what do you attribute that to? Why would they be following you or keep an eye on you? Do you have any idea?
Yeah.
So my bloodline goes pretty far back, not just the Denny family, but, even back, further back into a generational line. And I think I just I can't speak for everything, but I definitely have some sort of, connection with a lot of those bloodlines. So like I said, the further back you can go with your bloodline, and, obviously you can trace a lot of it through, even the Vatican if you wanted to, or, a lot of, ironically, the Mormon Church has a lot, and the Catholic Church has a lot of lineage lines.
I heard the Mormons have werewolves too. I'm not even joking.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm not even joking.
Yeah, they're real. You can take actually a specific path, like the left-handed path. You can take a path in a ritual where you turn into a werewolf and you grow a few inches.
Yeah, that's
grow a few inches.
You heard of what's his name? Bill Schnoblin, or was his name? Yeah. That's the one that I heard the story where he was a Mormon and there's this whole fleet of werewolves or lycans, or what you want to call them. Mm-hmm. That's just
and that's a real thing too. And they also have vampirics as well. So I personally, this was in Spokane, Washington, when I was living there at the time. They have an old movie theater, right? And a lot of people don't know is a few locals did at the time, but sometimes on certain nights of the year at the movie theater, you would go in there and it was abandoned at that time. I forget the name of the theater, but it's in the downtown area there, and you would see these creatures literally hanging upside down on these poles inside the actual complex.
Like vampires, like bats?
Yes.
Hanging around like bats?
Yep.
Crazy.
And it was literally, it's like almost human looking, but they're literally, it's like their legs are wrapped around these poles.
But are they...
And some,
Sorry,
yep,
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and they just had their legs wrapped around there, but something seemed a little bit off. Like myself and my twin, we saw that briefly, and I felt this horrible spiritual energy in the room, and it was like almost like the life was sucked out of the room, and like you could hear a pin drop, and I did not want to be there.
Wow.
So I bolted, but I definitely saw what I saw with my brother.
Do they have wings?
Did they have wings?
Yeah.
The ones I saw, no, they didn't. They were like wearing all black, and they had the palest skin ever.
When have they got up there?
In like in early 2000s, like a lot of people had this gothic type look where it was like pale skin and jet black hair.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a cultural knockoff of vampirics. It's actually glorifying vampirics.
That's crazy. So they're just hanging upside down. Their legs are twisted around the whatever they're hanging on. That's weird.
Yep, it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And they had jet black hair, and their eyes are jet black. There's no whites in it. It's jet black.
Would they look? Did you make eye contact with one?
With one, that's why I bolted.
Oh yeah.
I'm out.
Did they look like fully grown adults, or because
fully grown humans, like they looked like you or me, except the only difference you could tell is they had abnormally jet black hair and obviously jet black eyes, and then they had this super pale skin, almost albino looking.
That I don't know, man. That description is reminds me of the Black Eyed Kids.
Oh yeah.
Do you know anything about that? Does that involve the Freemasons too, or what's your angle on that?
Yeah, that's man. That has I think that's almost like, the children thing. I think that's almost like the spawn of like, not like the spawn of Satan, but like it's like some sort of hybridization, almost like a demonic hybridization of something. I can't put my finger on that. It's definitely dabbling in some transmutation type stuff. Because
those kids are not really smart. Like, what I mean smart is that when you hear these stories, they're kind of just like robots. Like, can we come inside, please? We need to come inside. And like, no, you can't. I really need to come inside. Someone's going to kill me and there's no one behind them. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like spewing any nonsense possible to get inside the house. And it reminds me of the vampire thing, where the vampires have to ask permission to come in your house. It's another thing that they have in common. So this whole vampiric thing is kind of related to the black-eyed kids, whatever you want to call them, because they need permission. For some reason, they need the permission to get in your house or to get in your car. I heard stories where they're in the car. I mean, that's probably the worst situation, is having them in the back seat. But I just besides that, you have any information on those things? Do you think they're like just a skin suit with a demonic spirit or something?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of them, like, I know there's things called, like, they call them like a husk or a shell, or they just call them like, even the movie, like Donnie Darko alludes to, subliminally alludes to it, like the human suit. They call it the human suit or the skin suit. A lot of these are just like, or they call them, like, kind of in that industry, drones as well. So it's basically, an effigy of like the human. And then it's basically what they have is basically the highest spirit indwells into that, shell of a human type form. And they basically are just using that form demonically. That's often information that I know, in ways that, it's like the Greys, like a lot of that stuff. There's certain things that they have, or it's like, they use a clone and they have a spirit inhabit that human clone.
I believe that.
That's a lot of what that happens, because a lot of these things, they don't have a soul. So it's basically just a human suit that a demon or Nephilim can inhabit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I do agree with that. Did you ever get a good look at the Men in Black?
You know what? They don't let you get a good look. The thing is, they're very tall. They're very tall, and it's almost like an unearthly. It's the most uneasy feeling ever. I mean, they wear the oddest like 50s, 60s type hats,
Mm-hmm.
and and they almost have like no ears. Almost, it's weird, and like they have the largest feet I've ever seen, and the hands are so big.
Really?
And it's the palest skin I've ever seen, and there's no expression on their face. It's just so dead, like void of spirit.
When did you? I mean, how close did you get to them? Or
I was probably about 10 feet away.
well, that's close.
Yeah, too close for comfort. I literally felt like violent vomiting. It's like, but I couldn't vomit. It's such a weird feeling, and they don't feel like they're actual men. They feel like they're posing as that, and they're unearthly. They're definitely some sort of being.
What are they, like 6.5 foot maybe, or?
I would say taller.
Wow.
Yeah, their gait, their natural walk is not natural. Like, I mean, there's a few videos on the internet.
What are they? I mean, do they look? Are they just really thin, or are they well proportioned?
They're pretty long and thin.
Yeah.
Obviously the ones I've seen, but they're very just. They look like tall basketball players, but like super skinny. But they don't have quite an earthly vibe to them.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's hard to explain.
Do the Freemasons send these guys out to go check on people, or what is it? What do these guys do?
They do a lot of the cover-up stuff. So it's like they work directly mostly with the government. Freemasons can be involved, but they definitely do high military, cover-up stuff. It's like people, for instance, people that build like cars, like water-powered cars, or somebody that breaks the paradigm or the petroleum industry.
Mm-hmm.
They'll send them off to go scare them, otherwise threaten them by killing them. So basically they do the dirty work of the bidding, or somebody that's kind of broke the matrix paradigm of, being in the slave system. They've excelled at something, it's like Tesla's work, so they tried to, bury all his work and, destroy it or keep it for themselves. So any technology that they deem us not to have or shouldn't have, or to keep us in a state that keeps us behind in terms of technology. Right.
Now, in Freemasonry, the Grand Master, does he wear a tall hat? It's probably a male, right? Is it ever a female, or is it only a male?
No, other than like the Eastern Star, which is a completely women's sect.
Okay.
Not that I've never come across ever, because it's mostly a brotherhood. The females usually do a lot. It's a really interesting setup. They usually do a lot of the kind of programming with the younger women. They'll be doing all the behind the scenes stuff with a lot of the stuff, or they'll help with the breeding programs. So they'll help like scout out, like basically traffic people for the sex magic rituals and stuff as well. But a lot of them are just like, I've never personally seen a woman ever, and I don't think there ever would be personally, just because of how it's set up. But yeah, so I mean, even with my great grandmother, she was the head of the Eastern Star, but that's a devoted towards a women's sect of it. So yeah, that is all female. It's either all female or all male like that. Okay. And they don't usually include a woman in that unless it's for sex magic.
Okay. How far did you get into Freemasons?
I personally wasn't involved.
Okay.
But my family bloodline and a lot of entanglements with that, I had the repercussions of.
Okay, I got it now.
I was actually one of the first to kind of break out of that for my family. And a lot of that, breaking generational curses with that. So for me, I was privy to, a few things that I probably shouldn't have been, but I was. And just because of my bloodline. But yeah, so it's nothing I would personally recommend.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. And there's some people out there, that are interested in getting into the Freemasons, what do you say to that? They're looking for knowledge. They're looking for something about their family line. What do you have to say to them?
In terms of trying to find Freemasonry in their family line? As
a solution to find out the past lineage of your family. If a family member was allegedly into the Freemasons, for me, I said, I would bury that right there. I wouldn't even go looking. But I mean, what do you have to say about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing, if you suspect a family member or your bloodline goes back to that, and you're experiencing high spiritual activity or abnormally tough situations with that spiritually, or I would just say no. You know what, for me, many years of suffering with that, I had to break a lot of that off and just pray to God to break things off with it. But I would just say, you know what, it only goes back to darkness, and it only goes back to the father of lies. So personally, I would just revoke it and renounce it in the name of Jesus, and just move on with your life, and get away from that scene. Sometimes family members, unfortunately, you can still love them, but you will need to physically relocate away from some of them, because wherever anyone is practicing that willingly and within the confines of their household, it's a spiritual marker saying, yes, I subscribe to this, and therefore they allow certain demons and portals and open gateway to that reality. And so you will have affliction just by a byproduct of being around that.
Right.
And I had to actually, do that with a few family members. So it was very deep and dark, and that whole life is very enveloping. So I would just say, go be near the light. That is, Jesus. So stay away from the darkness, and where people willingly serve, serve the father of lies. I would stay away from anything that has to be hidden, and hidden away from everyone. It's it's the hidden path. If it has to stay hidden, then it can't be anything of God. If it's hidden like that in a way that's done in an evil way.
Right. So you mentioned the left-handed path. What is the right-handed path?
Oh, so basically that's up the Kabbalistic tree. So
okay.
If you go based off of I don't know if you guys can see a picture or pull up a picture of the Kabbalistic tree, but it's basically the ancient Jewish mysticism, Freemasonry type sect of it. So you can go up the Scottish Rite path.
Okay, I'm looking at the tree. What am I looking for on here? It looks like a chakra looking thing on some of them.
Yeah. So that's you see right there. So so that's basically going up. They call that in Freemasonry. So you see the left side where they have B'nai should be on the third at the top left.
Yeah, I see it.
So that's taking the left hand, and then you see on the right, it's the Hokama.
Yeah.
So that's taking the right-handed path, and the two different paths of Freemasonry are just they're literally the same thing.
Yeah, I was about to say both these paths lead to the same point at the end.
Joab, and so basically it's just all the inner working of that. It's same with the Shriners. That's the Middle Eastern sect. So again, it comes down to the sect as well. Or they call it the two pillars. Boaz and
two pillars of Boaz or two pillars of Lamech are they the same?
No, the pillar of Boaz and Yakin or Jakin.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So that goes back to the Solomon Temple as well. So they call them the two pillars.
Right. That's correct.
So you can take two paths to the same destination in a say. It's the quote unquote stairway to heaven. So those are the steps to Freemasonry. It's like in the Led Zeppelin song, "Buying My Stairway to Heaven." Well, that's the Freemasonry path, up the steps.
Yeah, I'm looking at this now. It's really interesting the way they have a chart where they relate it to the human body. It just looks like it relates to everything else: the yin, the yang, the chakras, Hinduism, Buddhism. It's all the same crap, right? Packaged up in one, just different name, different present, or different wrapping around the present. Pretty much same present, same gift, different wrapping. Exactly. There you go.
That's crazy. Yeah, I was looking at it. It seems like in today's age, a lot of the forbidden knowledge people, like Billy Carson,
that guy,
he has millions of followers, and he's really into the new age. And I don't care if he listens to this; he can come on debate if he wants.
He's not. He blocked me.
Yeah, and what he worships is the Anunnaki, which basically are the seven sages, the Apkallu. You can call them whatever you want. They're fallen watchers. And I heard him one day, he put out something on Instagram, said that, oh, Freemasons, there's nothing wrong with it. They're good people. You should come check it out. And I'm like, what? So you got a guy who has millions of followers pushing this narrative. And I just want people, that's why I'm putting this out, because I want people to be aware of this guy and don't follow his nonsense. People need to dig into, he's obviously, he's got to be a Freemason. And when you start worshiping the Apkallu, or you want to call them the stylish Anunnaki, or the seven sages, plus Satan, and David Roll's book, Legend of Genesis, he's an archaeologist, an Egyptologist. All this stuff is just demonic in nature. This whole Anunnaki nonsense.
It's funny.
Masons, it just goes on and on.
He said the other day that marijuana comes from another planet. Man, I laugh at it. It's kind of funny because I see the people in the comments. They're like really, but like, oh man, really? I didn't know weed came from other planets. And like, bro, you don't even ask yourself how ridiculous what he just said right now. Because he has two channels. He blocked me on his Forbidden Knowledge one. And he has another page called Anunnaki History. And I haven't said anything too crazy in the comments for him to block me, but I'm just waiting for a good opportunity till he says something really ridiculous, and I'll unleash on him.
It is, it is ridiculous. He likens the word Genesis to ISIS because it sounds similar.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just silly, just nonsense. It's just all nonsense. This guy just feeds a bunch of baloney. It's just, it's comical. Yeah, it's comical, but a lot of people feed off of this. They're all into this, ancient aliens, and now, Freemasonry, and they're looking for forbidden knowledge. What does the Bible say about this, what the Watchers teach the people,
forbidden knowledge.
Yes, exactly. And this is what this guy's doing. He's talking about the third eye, and that goes back to the seven races. That's another esoteric writings there was a Cyclops, and their eye, that third eye eventually receded back into their head, which is a pineal gland now. It's just, it goes on and on and on and on. I just want people to know that.
Well, he was also in jail too a few years ago. I remember that. It was really weird. He was in jail and got scrubbed from the internet. And I think his brother came out and said that he's a Freemason. All this crazy, it's all happened within a day. All this stuff with him getting arrested and all this weird stuff. I don't know, but that guy's definitely on a sick one. Whatever he's smoking, it got to be from another planet, like you said.
I definitely got to check this out.
Yeah, he's full of it.
Oh my word! Yeah, does he worship Enlil?
I'm sure he does.
Yeah, if you ask me, this guy's obsessed with Thoth or Thoth.
Yeah.
Thoth,
yes.
And the Emerald tablets. This guy talks about these tablets like they are the Alpha and the Omega, and every problem and every issue can be solved with the Emerald tablets. Wow. And I just don't even want to hear his voice. I can hear his voice in my head right now. The Emerald tablets. Oh God. But yeah, I don't know where all this stuff comes from. I mean, I know where it comes from, but
Eastern mysticism.
I just don't know how anybody could just hear him say one thing and not do the research on it. Like, this guy can literally say anything, and I read the comments, and everybody's just taking it. It's fun. It's kind of funny. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of funny.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Sounds cultish.
Yeah.
Big time cultish. This guy just rambles on and on and on. So what do you, when you broke away from this family line, did you experience any repercussions spiritually? Did things try to claw back at you? I mean, I know you mentioned, telephone calls and all this stuff, all this weird stuff. Did this start happening after you broke away, or is it still ongoing or stuff like that?
Oh, it's no longer ongoing in my life, but it has wrecked a lot of my family's lives, and continues to do so in a lot of my immediate family too. But what I will say is, especially when people break off, or the breakaway generation, I like to call it, and they stand firm and, saying, no, I'm going in an opposite direction away from this, you will get a lot of sabotage type things try to happen and come after you. If you've planted firmly and said no further, you're going to get a lot of angry spirits. Like, you're going to get a lot of not only people that are upset, but you're going to get a lot of, fiery darts thrown at you, in the sense of, like, it's going to want to try and, tear down your whole, livelihood, in a sense, and your life, and make you look like, an imposter, or, or a quack in a way. So yeah, you will get a lot of repercussions, in the sense of, spirits trying to sabotage you, or trying to cause, issues. But all I would say to that is, Christ is bigger than that. And, just get some, get some prayer, and, just go to town, like, God's bigger than all that. So, you know what, you're doing a good thing for your bloodline. You're purifying it, in a sense, taking back what, the devil took as a stronghold. So, you know what, don't be afraid, but, stay prayed up, and, continue to march forward as a soldier.
Amen to that. That's exactly what people need to do. Just pray. Yeah. Pray, and just pray a hedge over you and your family. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. This is probably a little bit, well, I don't know if it's off topic or not, because I think it has to do with the family line being in the Freemasons.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me in an earlier conversation about seeing a Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, ironically, I saw that in Mount Shasta, in California, near Redding, California. But I saw Bigfoot there, but also I actually had two appearances. One was actually when I was younger, and I saw this actually with my childhood friend. He had a four-wheeler. Actually, we were just in the forest, wandering around in the forest, and we would just come back, and it was getting dark. We wandered out of the forest, and we turn around because we heard a noise, and like a tree completely like snap in the forest. Like, I'm not talking like twigs. I'm talking about like a whole tree trunk just snapping in half, and it sounded like a gunshot going off. Wow. And we saw this tree. It was like laying sideways, and all we could see is these orange glowing eyes, like, and this horrible, almost guttural, like, beast type sound. And it sounded weird. It sounded like no animal I've ever heard in my life. And we didn't think twice. We booked it out of there. After I saw the glowing eyes and the noise, I was gone. I was Usain Bolt. But I came back in the next morning, and I looked on his four-wheeler, because we saw this ooze, this green, like greeny, orangey goo, and it was just sitting on the four-wheeler, and it was so sticky, all this goo all over it. It looked like the 90s, like, what is that, Nickelodeon, like, slime, almost like that, with like an orangey tint to it. It was so weird.
That is weird. It's like, what, protoplasm or something? That's really strange. Yeah,
it was like this thing that came from its mouth or something, but it was so tall, this thing that I was looking at. I couldn't see what exactly it looked like in terms of description physically, but it was definitely super tall, and it had some sort of spiritual bend to it. I'm not sure what it was, but it was like it was there, but it was also had a spiritual aspect. It's very odd.
So what do you think it is? You think it's malevolent or benevolent?
I'm not sure. I've heard different, but I know the one there that I was looking at, it definitely had an evil tint to it.
Absolutely.
It's definitely an ancient being, whatever it is. Some people speculate it's, from the days, it's like a curse, on certain tribes, and, it was cursed. It was a cursed man or something. but, other people say it's a spiritual being, and I see connotations to, I can see arguments for both. But it's definitely something that it wouldn't seem like it's just friendly. It seems like it's definitely something that wasn't necessarily meant to be, but something that happened out of maybe, say, like a curse or some sort of hybridization or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a mystery. For me, it's an abomination. It's
Totally.
Something with the Nephilim demonic trickster spirit, because you hear stories that oh, they're good, they helped a little boy, and other stories you hear they're tearing people apart. I mean, it's just, for me, it's just a demon. It's a devil.
Oh, it's just like they mutilate too. It's not just like, it's not just like sitting there. It's like making a point, it makes a point, and it does so in a barbaric way. It's definitely every I've ran into that type of thing twice, and every time it's never had good vibes.
I have to agree with that. I'm not ever planning on going to look for that thing.
No, no, sir.
What are your closing statements for, the Freemason world, that space? What's your overall summation of it?
Yeah, look, I've seen a lot of evil things in that, and especially in my personal life, and I've seen a lot of families, a lot of homes wrecked with it. And a lot of just horrible things. And I would say, you know what, if you're interested in looking into that and the history, that's fine. But I would know, looking through that, you can look at things, for a time to know what your enemy's doing, but at the same time, the true enemy is, it's not going to be people and things like that. It's going to be, these principalities and, Satan. It's not going to be the people. A lot of these people are duped and confused. A lot of them aren't going to be the 33rd degree Mason. They're going to be just your average Joe thinking they don't know too much, and they're just in this cool club and they think they're doing right. But, pray for them. If you got family members in there, the best thing you can do is pray for them. If you can get a chance, talk to them about it, get them away from it. Because a lot of them are duped. They're lower levels, and they think they're okay. But I would steer clear from Freemasonry and do everything in your power to bring light to the darkness in your family, or if they're involved, and just, run away from it.
Amen.
Stay far away from it, because it's, it's nothing done. It's not good. It's done in the darkness. It's done, hidden. And they don't want everyone knowing certain things. They don't want their evil doings exposed, and they want to make you seem like it's the nicest, coolest kids club ever, but it's not. It's just of the devil at the end of the day.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. As I tell my kids, my students, I'm a boxing coach. I always tell them, I taught you everything you know, but not everything I know, because you ain't ever going to get the upper hand on me. But anyways, that's another story for another time. Thank you so much, Tanner, for coming on. We're kind of just going to hang out here for a little bit, do a closing statement, and just kind of hang on after we're done recording so we can talk a little bit, if that's all right with you.
That was great, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you again, Tanner. This is the Sabbath at Midnight, along here with Dominic, my co-host. And tonight was, as you can see, a very interesting episode. It went along many routes, but it's all related, believe it or not. Everything we talked about it all came back to Lucifer, and Lucifer is Freemason, and the whole web, I would call it. But other than that, good night or good morning, whatever the case may be, to all my friends around the world listening.